Many ambitious people find themselves exhausted from constantly hustling, yet still feeling perpetually broke. The relentless pursuit of money often leads to more stress and uncertainty rather than security and prosperity. If this resonates with you, know that you're not alone, and importantly, you're not the problem. In reality, obsessively chasing cash isn't just draining, it's actively pushing your dream of lasting wealth further away. The truth is, the key to financial freedom isn't hustling harder, but smarter. This book, Stop Chasing Cash, challenges conventional wisdom by revealing why directly pursuing money actually sabotages your long-term success. Instead, it offers a proven path to building strategic, wealth-attracting systems that generate cash consistently and predictably, even while you sleep. Inside, you'll learn how to shift your mindset from constantly reacting to immediate cash needs to proactively creating long-term wealth. You'll uncover why typical hustle tactics keep you trapped in an exhausting cycle of short-term gains and how adopting strategic patience can finally set you free. You'll discover how replacing your money-centric goals with systems you can actually control creates reliable wealth over time. Additionally, the book explores how compounding your unique skills transforms them into powerful financial assets and why prioritizing value creation naturally leads to sustainable, effortless cash flow. If you're ready to step off the endless hustle cycle, reclaim your time, and build lasting financial confidence, this book is your guide. Stop chasing cash and start creating systems that effortlessly bring wealth to you. Welcome to your new reality, where wealth isn't chased, it's created. Chapter 1. Stop the Chase. Your bank account hits zero at the worst possible moment. The client who promised to pay next week has gone silent. You're refreshing your dashboard obsessively, watching numbers that refuse to move. Sound familiar? Here's the brutal truth. You're measuring the wrong thing entirely. When money becomes your target, you've already lost the game. This chapter will show you why chasing cash is the fastest way to stay broke, and how the most successful builders think about wealth in a completely different way. The money trap that's killing your business. Every morning, you check the same numbers: revenue, profit, bank balance. These metrics feel important because they're what everyone talks about. But here's what nobody tells you. The moment money becomes your primary target, it stops being a reliable measure of progress. This is Goodhart's law in action. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Think about it. When you optimize for revenue above all else, you start making desperate decisions. You discount your prices to close deals faster. You overpromise to land bigger contracts. You chase every shiny opportunity instead of building something sustainable. The result? You're always one client away from disaster. Your income swings wildly. Your stress levels spike every time a deal falls through. You're trapped in what I call the revenue panic cycle, constantly firefighting instead of building. But the real damage runs deeper. When you obsess over money, you crowd out the activities that actually create wealth. You stop investing time in learning new skills. You skip building systems that could automate your work. You ignore relationship building because it doesn't show immediate returns. This is the crowding out effect, and it's why so many talented people stay stuck at the same income level year after year. The survivorship bias trap. Walk into any business conference and you'll hear the same stories. The entrepreneur who made millions overnight. The startup that went from zero to IPO in 18 months. The consultant who 10x their rates in 6 months. These stories are seductive. They're also dangerous. What you don't hear about are the hundreds of failures behind every success story. The entrepreneurs who bet everything and lost. The startups that burned through millions and shut down. The consultants who raised their rates too fast and lost all their clients. This is survivorship bias at its worst. You're copying highlight reels, not understanding the base rate realities. You see someone's Instagram post about their best month ever and assume their strategy will work for you. You don't see the months of struggle, the failed experiments, or the lucky breaks that made it possible. When you chase money based on other people's success stories, you're essentially playing the lottery. You might get lucky once, but luck isn't a strategy. It's not sustainable. And it's definitely not how wealth is built. The short-term thinking trap. Here's where it gets psychological. Humans are wired for immediate gratification. We overvalue rewards we can get today and undervalue rewards we might get tomorrow. Behavioral economists call this hyperbolic discounting, and it's killing your long-term wealth. When you focus on monthly revenue targets, you make decisions that feel good today but hurt you tomorrow. You take on clients who pay quickly but demand impossible timelines. You sell your intellectual property for quick cash instead of licensing it for recurring revenue. You burn through your energy and relationships for short-term gains. Your calendar becomes a graveyard of urgent tasks that feel important but don't compound. You're always busy, always stressed, but never building anything that lasts. Important work, the kind that creates real wealth, never gets done because it doesn't have an immediate payoff. What happens when you keep chasing? If you don't break this pattern, here's where you'll be in 5 years. Still on the treadmill, still stressed about money, still one bad month away from panic. The burnout loops get worse over time. You oversell your capabilities to hit revenue targets. You work longer hours to deliver on impossible promises. Your quality suffers. Your reputation takes hits. Clients start leaving. You discount even more to keep the revenue flowing. The cycle accelerates. Eventually, you hit what I call the risk of ruin scenario. One bad bet, one client who doesn't pay, one market downturn, one health crisis, wipes out months or years of progress. You're forced into desperate pivots, taking on work you hate just to survive. Meanwhile, opportunities pass you by. While you're firefighting, competitors are building moats. While you're chasing quick cash, others are developing skills that command premium prices. While you're playing status games on social media, builders are quietly compounding their capabilities. The builder's alternative. But there's another way. Instead of chasing money, you can magnetize it. Instead of optimizing for revenue, you can optimize for the inputs that create revenue as a byproduct. This book will teach you to think like a builder, not a speculator. Builders focus on process first, measuring the activities they control rather than the outcomes they hope for. They create system stacks that ship value consistently. They develop skill moats that justify premium pricing. They practice smart risk management to protect their compounding. They extend their time horizon to let patience work its magic. The journey ahead involves mastering market sanity so you never become the greater fool in someone else's bubble. You'll learn value over price strategies that end the race to the bottom. Finally, you'll install a wealth flywheel where cash, credibility, and calm grow together in a self-reinforcing loop. The identity shift that changes everything. This isn't just about tactics. It's about becoming a different type of person. Winners build, ship, and learn on repeat. They think in decades but act in days. They protect their downside while pricing on value. Losers chase cash, copy hype, and brag about their grind. They panic pivot when things get tough. They over-leverage their bets and under-deliver on promises. They negotiate pennies while ignoring the skill growth that could earn them dollars. The choice is yours. You can keep refreshing your bank balance, hoping this month will be different. Or you can start building the systems, skills, and mindset that make wealth inevitable. The path forward isn't about working harder. It's about working on the right things in the right order. It's about measuring what matters and ignoring what doesn't. It's about becoming the type of person to whom money flows naturally because you've built something worth paying for. The chase ends here. The building begins now. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the first pillar of this transformation, how to replace revenue panic with reliable production through the power of process-first thinking. But first, you need to make a choice. Will you keep playing the money game that's designed to keep you stressed and struggling, or will you learn to play a different game entirely, one where wealth becomes the natural outcome of your mastery and strategic calm? The answer to that question will determine everything that follows. Before we continue, Make sure to subscribe to grow to the top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, Process First. The most successful builders have a secret. They never check their bank balance first thing in the morning. Instead, they look at something else entirely, something that predicts their financial future with startling accuracy. What they're tracking isn't revenue, profit, or even client satisfaction scores. It's something far more fundamental. Something you can control today, this week, every week. Something that turns the chaotic world of business into a predictable engine of wealth creation. This chapter reveals what that something is and why it's the difference between those who build lasting wealth and those who stay trapped in the revenue roller coaster forever. The scoreboard that actually matters. Picture two entrepreneurs. Both are talented, both work hard, both want financial freedom, but only one will get there. The first entrepreneur starts each day by checking yesterday's sales numbers. If they're good, he feels confident. If they're bad, panic sets in. His mood swings with his metrics. His decisions become reactive. When revenue dips, he discounts prices. When it spikes, he assumes he's figured it out. He's riding an emotional roller coaster disguised as business strategy. The second entrepreneur barely glances at revenue numbers. Instead, she tracks something different. How many prototypes she shipped this week, how many customer conversations she had, how many iterations she completed. These numbers tell her exactly what her revenue will look like next month, next quarter, next year. She sleeps better. She makes calmer decisions. She builds wealth while the first entrepreneur chases it. The difference? She's discovered the power of lead indicators. Lead indicators are the activities you control that inevitably create the outcomes you want. They're the inputs that drive outputs. They're the cause that creates the effect. And they're the secret weapon of every builder who's escaped the money-chasing trap. Think of it this way. Revenue is what happened. Lead indicators are what's happening. Revenue tells you about the past. Lead indicators predict the future. Revenue makes you reactive. Lead indicators make you proactive. The control revolution. Here's what most people don't understand about business success. You can't control outcomes, but you can control inputs. You can't force clients to buy, but you can control how many prospects you talk to. You can't guarantee a product will succeed, but you can control how quickly you test and iterate. This shift from outcome obsession to process mastery changes everything. When you focus on what you control, anxiety drops, confidence rises. Decision-making becomes clearer because you're not constantly second-guessing results that are largely outside your influence. Lead indicators give you agency in any market condition. When the economy tanks, you can't control demand, but you can control your shipping cadence. When competition heats up, you can't control their moves, but you can control your learning velocity. When clients get difficult, you can't control their behavior, but you can control your response systems. This is why builders who master process-first thinking seem unshakable. They're not superhuman. They're just measuring different things. They've learned to find stability in what they control rather than chaos in what they don't. The compound learning engine. But lead indicators do something even more powerful than provide emotional stability. They accelerate your learning in ways that outcome metrics never could. When you track how many customer interviews you complete each week, you get immediate feedback on your research process. When you measure how quickly you can ship iterations, you discover bottlenecks in real time. When you monitor your cycle times, you can experiment with improvements and see results within days, not months. This creates what I call a compound learning engine. Each week, you get better at the activities that drive results. Your reps get faster, your quality improves, your instincts sharpen. The gap between effort and outcome shrinks until success feels inevitable rather than accidental. Compare this to someone tracking only revenue. They might wait months to know if a strategy is working. By then, they've wasted enormous amounts of time and energy on ineffective approaches. They learn slowly, adapt slowly, and improve slowly. They're always behind the curve instead of ahead of it. The myth of more. Before we dive into how to build your own lead indicator system, let's destroy some dangerous myths that keep people stuck in outcome obsession. The first myth is that bigger money goals fix everything. Set $1 million revenue target, the thinking goes, and you'll naturally do what it takes to hit it. This is backwards. Big outcome goals without process clarity just increase anxiety. They make you more likely to chase shiny objects, take desperate swings, and abandon strategies before they have time to work. The second myth is that more hours equal more revenue. This is the hustler's fallacy. Working longer doesn't create wealth. Working on the right things does. A builder who ships one high-quality prototype in 4 focused hours creates more value than someone who grinds for 12 hours on busy work. Smart cadence beats raw hours every time. The third myth is that creative work can't be measured. This is the artist's excuse. You absolutely can measure creative output. You can track how many ideas you generate, how quickly you move from concept to prototype, how often you gather feedback, how rapidly you iterate. Creativity thrives within constraints, and measurement provides the best constraints of all. Building your lead indicator dashboard. Now comes the practical part, designing your own process-first scoreboard. This isn't about tracking everything, it's about tracking the right things. Start by working backwards from your desired outcomes. Want more revenue? Ask yourself, what activities directly lead to revenue? Client conversations, proposals sent, prototypes demonstrated, referrals requested. Pick the 3 to 5 activities that have the strongest causal relationship to your goals. Make each metric binary and weekly. Either you shipped a prototype this week or you didn't. Either you had 3 client conversations or you didn't. Binary metrics eliminate the gray area that leads to rationalization. Weekly timeframes create urgency without panic. Assign ownership to each metric. If you're a solo operator, you own them all. If you have a team, each metric needs a name attached. Ownership creates accountability. Accountability drives consistency. Consistency creates results. Keep your dashboard visible and simple. 1 page, clear numbers, updated weekly. Complexity kills adoption. If you can't glance at your metrics and immediately understand your trajectory, you're tracking too much. The Friday ritual that changes everything. The magic happens in your weekly review. Every Friday, spend 30 minutes with your dashboard. Score your metrics. Celebrate what worked. Analyze what didn't. Choose exactly one thing to adjust for the following week. This ritual transforms data into wisdom. You start seeing patterns. You notice which activities correlate with better outcomes. You identify bottlenecks before they become crises. You build intuition about what really drives your business forward. The key is changing only one variable per week. This gives you clean data about what's working. Change too many things at once, and you'll never know which adjustment created which result. Patience in experimentation leads to clarity in strategy. Document your lessons in a simple log. What did you learn this week? What will you test next week? What patterns are emerging over time? This archive becomes your personal playbook, a collection of insights that compound your effectiveness over months and years. The No Zero Ship Rule. Here's a non-negotiable principle that separates builders from dreamers. Something must ship every week. No exceptions, no excuses. No, I'll catch up next week. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. A prototype, a proposal, a piece of content, a process improvement, a client conversation, something that moves your business forward in a tangible way. This rule protects you from perfectionism, procrastination, and the endless planning that masquerades as progress. It forces you to break big projects into weekly deliverables. It creates momentum that compounds over time. Most importantly, it builds the identity of someone who ships consistently rather than sporadically. Small wins compound into big victories. Weekly shipping becomes monthly momentum. Monthly momentum becomes quarterly breakthroughs. Quarterly breakthroughs become annual transformation. The compound effect of consistent execution is the closest thing to magic in business. The emotional transformation. As you implement process-first thinking, something unexpected happens. Your relationship with your business changes. The daily anxiety about money starts to fade. The constant checking of revenue numbers becomes less compulsive. The panic when deals fall through diminishes. You develop what I call builder's confidence, the quiet certainty that comes from controlling your inputs. You know that if you hit your lead indicators consistently, the outcomes will follow. You sleep better because you're measuring what you control rather than what controls you. This emotional shift is just as valuable as any financial gain. Stress is expensive, anxiety clouds judgment, panic leads to poor decisions. When you eliminate these emotional drains, you free up mental energy for creativity, strategy, and growth. But there's something even more powerful waiting for you once you've mastered the art of process-first thinking. Something that transforms occasional wins into inevitable success. Something that makes your entire operation more predictable, scalable, and valuable. The next chapter reveals how to build the infrastructure that turns your lead indicators into a reliable wealth creation machine, but only if you're ready to think about your business in a completely different way. Chapter 3: System Stack. There's a reason why some builders ship consistently while others struggle to deliver anything on time. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not even effort. It's something far more fundamental, something that transforms chaotic bursts of activity into predictable engines of value creation. Something that makes the difference between working in your business and building a business that works without you. The most successful entrepreneurs have discovered a secret that goes beyond tracking the right metrics. They've learned to create something that turns good intentions into inevitable outcomes, that converts sporadic wins into systematic success. This chapter reveals what that something is and why it's the bridge between knowing what to do and actually getting it done consistently. The invisible infrastructure. Walk into any thriving business and you'll notice something interesting. Things happen smoothly. Deadlines get met, quality stays consistent, problems get solved before they become crises. There's a rhythm to the operation that feels almost effortless. What you're witnessing isn't magic, it's the power of systems. But here's what most people miss. The best systems are nearly invisible. They don't announce themselves with complex software or elaborate processes. They're elegant, simple, and so well designed that following them feels natural rather than forced. Think about it this way. Goals tell you where you want to go. Lead indicators tell you if you're moving in the right direction. But systems are what actually get you there. They're the infrastructure that converts intention into action, that transforms sporadic effort into compound progress. Without systems, you're constantly reinventing the wheel. Every project starts from scratch. Every decision requires fresh mental energy. Every handoff creates opportunities for error. You're working harder than necessary while achieving less than possible. With systems, work becomes predictable, quality becomes consistent, growth becomes scalable. You stop firefighting and start building. The value creation loop. At the heart of every successful operation lies a simple but powerful pattern. It's a loop that converts problems into solutions, solutions into value, and value into growth. Master this loop, and you master the art of systematic wealth creation. The loop has 5 stages, each flowing naturally into the next. Discover what people need. Design solutions that meet those needs. Deliver prototypes that test your assumptions. Collect feedback that reveals what's working. Iterate based on what you learn. Then start the cycle again, but better. This isn't just a business process. It's a learning machine. Each cycle through the loop makes you smarter. Each iteration improves your understanding. Each delivery builds your reputation. The loop compounds your capabilities while generating your income. But here's the crucial insight. The loop only works if it actually loops. Most people get stuck in one stage. They discover endlessly without designing. They design without delivering. They deliver without collecting feedback. They collect feedback without iterating. The magic happens in the movement between stages, not in perfecting any single stage. When you map this loop for your business, something remarkable happens. Chaos becomes clarity. Random activity becomes purposeful progress. You stop wondering what to work on next because the loop tells you exactly where you are and what comes next. The documentation advantage. Now we get to the part that separates professionals from amateurs. Documentation. Not the boring bureaucratic kind that kills momentum, the smart kind that multiplies your effectiveness. Here's the truth most entrepreneurs refuse to face. If it's not documented, it doesn't exist as a system. It's just something you happen to do well sometimes, and sometimes doesn't scale. The most valuable documentation focuses on the 20% of steps that drive 80% of your results. These are the critical moments where quality gets made or broken, the handoffs where things typically fall through cracks, the decisions that determine whether a project succeeds or fails. You don't need to document everything. You need to document the things that matter most. The steps that, when done right, make everything else easier. The checkpoints that catch problems early. The standards that ensure consistency even when you're not personally involved. Start messy and refine as you go. Record your screen while you work. Capture your decision-making process. Note the questions you ask and the criteria you use. Turn your expertise into assets that can be shared, improved, and scaled. The creativity myth. Before we dive deeper into building your system stack, let's destroy a dangerous myth that keeps talented people trapped in chaos: the idea that systems kill creativity. This is backwards thinking. Systems don't kill creativity, they protect it. When you have reliable processes for the routine parts of your work, you free up mental energy for the parts that actually require innovation. Think about it. How creative can you be when you're constantly worried about missing deadlines? How innovative can you be when you're firefighting preventable problems? How strategic can you be when every project feels like you're starting from zero? Systems handle the predictable so you can focus on the exceptional. They create constraints that actually spark better solutions. They provide the stable foundation that makes creative risks safer to take. The most creative professionals are often the most systematic. They've automated the boring parts so they can spend their time on the interesting parts. They've eliminated the chaos that drains creative energy. They've built the infrastructure that supports sustained innovation. The handoff revolution. One of the most powerful aspects of systematic thinking is how it transforms handoffs. In most businesses, handoffs are where value goes to die. Information gets lost, quality degrades, timelines slip, frustration builds. But when you design proper handoffs, something magical happens. Work flows smoothly from stage to stage. Quality actually improves as different specialists add their expertise. Timelines become predictable because everyone knows exactly what they're receiving and what they need to deliver. The secret is making handoffs binary and automatic. Either the previous stage is complete according to predefined criteria, or it's not. Either the next stage has everything it needs to begin, or it doesn't. No gray areas, no judgment calls, no "we'll figure it out as we go." Templates become your best friend here. Brief templates that capture all necessary context. Delivery templates that ensure nothing gets forgotten. Quality check templates that catch problems before they compound. When handoffs become templated, they become reliable. This is where the real leverage happens. When you can hand off work confidently, you can start delegating. When you can delegate reliably, you can start scaling. When you can scale systematically, you can start building wealth that doesn't require your constant presence. The weekly rhythm. Systems without rhythm are just good intentions. The magic happens when you establish a weekly cadence that keeps everything moving forward consistently. Every week, you need 3 things to happen. Something needs to ship. Something needs to be reviewed. Something needs to be improved. This creates a heartbeat for your operation that prevents stagnation and ensures continuous progress. The weekly retrospective becomes your system's upgrade mechanism. What shipped this week? What got blocked? What patterns are emerging? What needs to change? Spend 30 minutes every week asking these questions, and your systems will evolve faster than your competition can copy them. The key is changing only one thing per week. This gives you clean data about what's working. Change too many variables at once, and you'll never know which adjustment created which result. Patience in improvement leads to clarity in optimization. Document every change and its impact. Over time, you'll build a library of insights about what makes your operation more effective. This becomes your competitive advantage, a deep understanding of how to make your specific business run better. The delegation gateway. Here's where systems reveal their true power. They make delegation safe. When you have documented processes, clear quality standards, and reliable handoffs, you can bring other people into your operation without losing control or quality. Most entrepreneurs are afraid to delegate because they don't trust that others will do the work as well as they would. This fear is rational when you don't have systems. Without clear processes and standards, delegation is just hoping someone else will read your mind. But with proper systems, delegation becomes a matter of training and accountability rather than hope and prayer. You can show someone exactly how to do the work. You can give them the tools and templates they need. You can establish clear checkpoints to ensure quality. This is the bridge from solopreneur to business owner, from trading time for money to building assets that generate income, from being indispensable to being strategic. Systems are what make this transition possible. The compound effect. As your systems mature, something beautiful happens. Each improvement makes the next improvement easier. Each documented process becomes a template for the next process. Each successful handoff makes the next handoff smoother. Your operation develops momentum. Quality becomes more consistent. Delivery becomes more predictable. Clients start trusting your promises because you consistently keep them. Your reputation compounds as your reliability becomes known in your market. But systems do something even more valuable than improve your current operation. They prepare you for opportunities you can't yet see. When a big opportunity appears, you'll be ready to scale quickly because your infrastructure can handle the growth. When market conditions change, you'll be able to adapt faster because your processes are documented and improvable. The builders who thrive in any market are those who've invested in systematic thinking. They've built the infrastructure that supports growth rather than constrains it. They've created the foundation that makes everything else possible. But there's something even more powerful than having great systems. Something that multiplies the value of every system you build. Something that transforms good processes into unstoppable competitive advantages. The next chapter reveals the secret that turns systematic thinking into systematic wealth creation, but only for those who understand that true leverage comes not from working harder, but from becoming irreplaceable in ways that matter. Chapter 4. Skill Moats. Two professionals with identical experience apply for the same high-paying project. Both have impressive portfolios. Both have glowing testimonials. Both charge similar rates. Yet one gets hired immediately at premium pricing while the other gets ignored. What's the difference? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not even their track record. It's something far more strategic, something that creates an invisible barrier between you and your competition. Something that makes clients choose you not because you're cheaper, but because you're irreplaceable. The most successful builders have discovered a secret about capability that goes beyond being good at one thing. They've learned to create something that makes price objections disappear and waiting lists appear. This chapter reveals what that secret is and why it's the difference between competing on price and commanding premium rates. The multiplication effect. Here's what most professionals get wrong about skill development. They think addition when they should think multiplication. Most people collect skills like trophies. They learn copywriting, then add design, then pick up some analytics, then dabble in automation. Each skill sits in its own silo, occasionally useful but never transformative. They're playing an addition game in a multiplication world. But the builders who command premium rates think differently. They don't just collect skills, they stack them. They choose skills that amplify each other, that create combinations so rare and valuable that clients have no choice but to pay premium prices. When you combine copywriting with behavioral psychology, you don't just write better, you write persuasively in ways that most copywriters can't. When you add automation to that mix, you don't just create persuasive copy, you create persuasive systems that work while you sleep. When you layer in analytics, you don't just create automated persuasive systems, you create ones that optimize themselves. This is skill compounding. Each new capability doesn't just add to your value, it multiplies it. The combination becomes worth far more than the sum of its parts. You stop competing with specialists and start creating your own category. The builder's advantage. There are two types of people in every market: builders and speculators. Speculators chase trends, hoping to catch the next wave before it crashes. Builders create assets that generate value regardless of which way the waves are moving. Speculators learn whatever skill is hot right now. When social media marketing is trending, they become social media experts. When AI tools explode, they pivot to AI consulting. When the next shiny object appears, they chase that too. They're always one trend behind, always competing with thousands of others who made the same pivot. Builders think differently. They ask, what recurring problems do people have that I could solve systematically? Then they build the capabilities needed to solve those problems better than anyone else. They create tools, frameworks, and systems that work regardless of what's trending. The difference is profound. Speculators earn episodically, big wins followed by dry spells as trends shift. Builders earn repeatedly, their assets generate value consistently because they solve persistent problems. This is why the most successful professionals often seem immune to market fluctuations. They're not riding waves. They're the infrastructure that others depend on, regardless of which waves are popular. The toolmaker's secret. During the California gold rush, thousands of prospectors rushed west, hoping to strike it rich. Most went broke. But there was one group that consistently profited: the people selling picks, shovels, and supplies to the miners. Levi Strauss became wealthy not by digging for gold, but by making durable pants for the people who did. The hardware stores, the equipment manufacturers, the service providers, they all prospered while the prospectors struggled. This is the toolmaker advantage. While everyone else chases the gold, you build the tools that make the chase possible. While others speculate on outcomes, you profit from the process itself. In today's economy, this principle is more powerful than ever. While entrepreneurs chase the latest business model, you could build the systems that help them execute any business model. While marketers chase the newest platform, you could create the frameworks that work across all platforms. While consultants chase the hottest niche, you could develop the methodologies that apply to any niche. The toolmaker advantage isn't just about avoiding risk, it's about creating sustainable competitive advantages. Tools improve with use. Frameworks get better as more people apply them. Systems become more valuable as they prove their reliability across different contexts. The choke point strategy. But here's the crucial insight. Not all skills are worth developing. The key is finding your choke point, the single constraint that's limiting your results more than anything else. Most people develop skills randomly. They learn whatever seems interesting or whatever they think might be useful someday. This is skill hoarding, not skill building. It leads to mediocrity across many areas rather than excellence in the areas that matter most. Smart builders think systematically. They analyze their value creation process and identify the bottleneck. Where do projects typically stall? What causes the most rework? What prevents them from charging higher rates? What makes clients hesitate before saying yes? The choke point is usually obvious once you look for it. Maybe you're great at strategy but terrible at implementation. Maybe you create brilliant solutions but struggle to communicate their value. Maybe you deliver excellent work but can't systematize it for others. Once you identify the choke point, everything becomes clear. You know exactly which skill to develop next. You know it will have immediate impact because it's removing your biggest constraint. You know it will compound with your existing capabilities because it's filling the missing piece. The 12-week sprint. Here's where most skill development goes wrong. People try to become experts before they start monetizing. They spend months or years learning in isolation, then wonder why the market doesn't value their new capability. The builders who succeed think differently. They use what I call the 12-week sprint approach. Pick one skill that addresses your choke point, commit to 45 minutes of deliberate practice every day, ship one project using that skill every week, monetize it within your existing offers as soon as possible. This approach works because it's based on learning by doing rather than learning by studying. You get real feedback from real clients on real projects. You discover what actually matters versus what sounds impressive in theory. You build confidence through competence rather than hoping competence will eventually lead to confidence. The weekly shipping requirement is crucial. It forces you to apply what you're learning immediately. It prevents perfectionism from paralyzing progress. It creates a portfolio of proof that you can use to justify higher rates. Most importantly, it makes the skill development process self-funding. Instead of spending money on courses and hoping for future returns, you're generating revenue while you learn. The skill pays for itself before you've even mastered it. The publishing advantage. Here's a secret that most professionals miss. Learning in public compounds your reputation while building your capabilities. When you document your skill development journey, you're not just getting better, you're building authority. Share your experiments, document your failures, explain your breakthroughs, show your work in progress. This isn't about bragging, it's about building trust through transparency. When prospects see you actively developing new capabilities, they don't see inexperience, they see growth mindset. They don't see weakness, they see someone who's constantly improving. They don't see risk, they see someone who's ahead of the curve. This public learning approach also creates unexpected opportunities. Other professionals notice your work and want to collaborate. Potential clients see your expertise developing and want to get in early. Industry leaders appreciate your transparency and become informal mentors. The artifacts you create while learning become assets in themselves. The frameworks you develop, the tools you build, the insights you document, these become intellectual property that can be licensed, sold, or used to justify premium pricing. The compound curve. As your skill stack develops, something magical happens. Each new capability doesn't just add to your value, it creates new combinations and possibilities you couldn't have imagined before. Your pricing power increases not linearly, but exponentially. Clients stop comparing you to other providers because there are no other providers who offer your specific combination of capabilities. You stop competing on price because you're competing on outcomes that only you can deliver. Your defensibility grows stronger over time. While competitors can copy individual skills, they can't replicate the unique combinations and insights that come from your specific journey. Your moat deepens with every project, every experiment, every iteration. Your optionality expands dramatically. You can monetize your capabilities in multiple ways: direct services, productized offerings, licensing deals, partnership arrangements. When market conditions change, you have more ways to adapt and thrive. But perhaps most importantly, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who trades time for money and start seeing yourself as someone who creates value through capability. You stop worrying about competition and start focusing on creation. The adjacent possible. The key to effective skill stacking is understanding adjacency. The most powerful skill combinations are those where each capability enhances the others in unexpected ways. If you're a strategist, learning facilitation makes your strategy sessions more effective. If you're a designer, understanding psychology makes your designs more persuasive. If you're a developer, grasping business fundamentals makes your solutions more valuable. The adjacent possible is where breakthrough value gets created. It's where you find combinations that seem obvious in retrospect, but weren't obvious to anyone before you connected the dots. This is why the most successful builders often seem to have unusual backgrounds. They've connected capabilities from different domains in ways that create unique value propositions. They've found the intersections where multiple skills multiply each other's impact. But there's something even more powerful than building the perfect skill stack. Something that protects all your hard-won capabilities from being destroyed by a single mistake. Something that ensures your growing expertise compounds safely over time rather than getting wiped out by one bad decision. The next chapter reveals the framework that separates builders who thrive from those who merely survive, but only for those who understand that true wealth requires not just the ability to create value, but the wisdom to protect it. Chapter 5: Smart Risk. The most successful builders share a counterintuitive trait. They're not the biggest risk takers. They're not the most aggressive. They're not the ones betting everything on bold moves. They're the ones who never get wiped out. While others swing for the fences and strike out spectacularly, these builders stay in the game long enough for compounding to work its magic. While competitors make headlines with dramatic wins and losses, they quietly accumulate advantages that compound over decades. This chapter reveals the framework that separates builders who thrive from those who merely survive. It's not about avoiding risk, it's about something far more sophisticated. The survival paradox. Here's what most entrepreneurs get backwards about risk. They think courage means betting big. They believe that playing it safe is for losers. They've been told that fortune favors the bold, so they interpret boldness as recklessness. This is exactly backwards. The most successful builders understand a fundamental truth. You can't compound what you don't keep. One catastrophic loss can erase years of gains. One bet the company decision can end the game permanently. One moment of overconfidence can destroy everything you've built. But here's the paradox. The builders who protect their downside most carefully are often the ones who achieve the biggest upsides. Not because they're timid, but because they stay in the game long enough to capture the full power of compounding. Think about it this way. If you lose 50% of your capital, you need a 100% gain just to get back to even. If you lose 90%, you need a 900% gain to recover. The mathematics of loss are brutal and unforgiving. This is why smart risk management isn't about avoiding opportunity. It's about preserving your ability to capture opportunity over time. It's about building a system that lets you take many small, intelligent bets rather than a few large, desperate ones. The asymmetric advantage. The secret lies in understanding asymmetric risk. This is where the potential upside far exceeds the potential downside, where you can lose a little but gain a lot, where the worst-case scenario is manageable but the best-case scenario is transformational. Most people think in terms of symmetric risk. They risk $1 to make $1. They bet their reputation to gain recognition. They invest their time hoping for proportional returns. This is a losing game because it ignores the compound effects of both gains and losses. Smart builders think asymmetrically. They risk small amounts to test big ideas. They make reversible decisions that can lead to irreversible advantages. They structure experiments where failure teaches valuable lessons and success creates exponential returns. The key is in the sizing. When you risk only what you can afford to lose completely, you eliminate the fear that clouds judgment. When you structure bets so that even failures provide learning, you turn every experiment into an asset. When you ensure that no single decision can destroy your future, you free yourself to be genuinely bold where it matters. The compound protection strategy. But asymmetric thinking is just the beginning. The real power comes from understanding how risk management protects compounding. Every successful builder needs a system that prevents one bad decision from undoing years of good ones. This starts with establishing clear boundaries before emotions get involved. How much can you afford to lose on any single experiment? What percentage of your resources should be at risk at any given time? What signals will tell you to cut losses before they become catastrophic? These aren't arbitrary rules. They're guardrails that keep you on the road to long-term success. They prevent the psychological biases that destroy wealth. Loss aversion that makes you hold losing positions too long. Overconfidence that makes you bet too big after wins. Recency bias that makes you overweight recent events. The most effective approach is to think in terms of a risk budget. Just as you budget your money and time, you need to budget your risk exposure. Allocate a small percentage of your resources to experiments and new ventures. Keep the majority in proven, stable activities that generate consistent returns. This approach does something powerful. It makes risk-taking sustainable. Instead of swinging between periods of reckless betting and paralyzed inaction, you maintain a steady pace of intelligent experimentation. You're always testing new ideas, but never betting more than you can afford to lose. The premortem advantage. One of the most powerful tools in smart risk management is the premortem, imagining failure before it happens. Most people do postmortems after projects fail, trying to figure out what went wrong. Smart builders do premortems before projects start, identifying potential failure modes while there's still time to prevent them. This isn't pessimism, it's preparation. By thinking through how things could go wrong, you can build safeguards, create contingency plans, and establish early warning systems. You can structure experiments to fail fast and cheap rather than slow and expensive. The premortem process is simple but powerful. Before starting any significant initiative, spend time listing all the ways it could fail. Consider operational failures, market failures, execution failures, timing failures. Then ask, which of these can we prevent? Which can we mitigate? Which should trigger an immediate stop? This exercise does something remarkable. It transforms vague anxiety into specific action items. Instead of worrying about undefined risks, you're addressing concrete scenarios. Instead of hoping everything will work out, you're building systems that increase the probability of success. The correlation trap. One of the most dangerous mistakes builders make is concentrating their risks without realizing it. They think they're diversified because they have multiple projects, multiple clients, or multiple revenue streams. But if all their risks are correlated, if they all depend on the same market, the same platform, or the same economic conditions, they're more vulnerable than they realize. True risk management requires understanding these hidden correlations. If all your clients are in the same industry, you're exposed to industry-specific downturns. If all your revenue comes through the same platform, you're vulnerable to platform changes. If all your strategies depend on the same market conditions, you're betting on those conditions continuing forever. Smart builders actively seek uncorrelated risks. They diversify across industries, platforms, and business models. They build multiple skill stacks that remain valuable in different scenarios. They create revenue streams that thrive in different market conditions. This isn't about spreading yourself thin. It's about building anti-fragility. You want a portfolio of bets where some will fail, some will succeed modestly, and a few will succeed spectacularly. The key is ensuring that the failures can't destroy your ability to capture the successes. The evidence standard. Perhaps the most important aspect of smart risk management is maintaining high standards for evidence. The business world is full of survivorship bias. We hear about the winners, but not the losers. We see the highlight reels, but not the full stories. We copy strategies without understanding the context that made them work. Smart builders demand better evidence. They look for base rates, not anecdotes. They seek disconfirming evidence, not just confirmation. They test assumptions rather than accepting them. They understand that what worked for someone else in different circumstances might not work for them. This means being skeptical of success stories that seem too good to be true. It means looking for the failures that don't get publicized. It means understanding that correlation isn't causation and that timing often matters more than strategy. Most importantly, it means building your own data rather than relying on others. The best evidence for what works in your business comes from your own experiments, conducted with your own customers, in your own market conditions. The patience multiplier. Smart risk management requires a different relationship with time. Instead of seeking immediate results, you're optimizing for long-term compounding. Instead of making big bets on uncertain outcomes, you're making small bets that teach you how to make better bets. This patience is a competitive advantage. While others are chasing quick wins and dramatic breakthroughs, you're building the knowledge and capabilities that create sustainable advantages. While they're swinging between euphoria and despair, you're maintaining the emotional equilibrium that enables good decision-making. The key insight is that time transforms risk. What seems risky in the short term often becomes safe in the long term through repetition and learning. What seems safe in the short term often becomes risky in the long term through complacency and stagnation. Smart builders use time as an ally. They give their experiments enough time to work. They give their skills enough time to compound. They give their relationships enough time to mature. They understand that the best opportunities often look like bad ideas initially, and that the worst decisions often feel great in the moment. The compound calm. As you implement smart risk management, something unexpected happens. Your stress levels drop. Your decision-making improves. Your confidence grows. Not because you're taking fewer risks, but because you're taking better risks. When you know that no single decision can destroy your future, you're free to be genuinely bold where it matters. When you have systems that protect your downside, you can pursue upside opportunities with clarity rather than desperation. When you understand the difference between intelligent risk and reckless gambling, you can play a different game entirely. This calm becomes a competitive advantage. While others are making emotional decisions based on fear or greed, you're making rational decisions based on evidence and probability. While they're paralyzed by uncertainty or reckless in their confidence, you're taking measured actions that compound over time. But smart risk management is just one piece of a larger puzzle. There's something even more fundamental that determines whether your careful risk-taking pays off over time. Something that separates those who build lasting wealth from those who just avoid losing money. The next chapter reveals the factor that multiplies the value of every smart risk you take, but only for those who understand that true wealth isn't built in months or years, but in the patient accumulation of advantages that most people aren't willing to wait for. Chapter 6, Time Horizon. The most successful builders have a secret weapon that their competitors can't copy, can't buy, and can't steal. It's not a skill, it's not a strategy, it's not even a mindset. It's something far more fundamental, something that transforms every other advantage you've built into exponential returns. Something that turns small edges into massive moats, tiny improvements into transformational outcomes. Most people trade this weapon away for immediate gratification without even realizing what they're giving up. They sacrifice decades of compound growth for days of instant satisfaction. They choose the quick hit over the long build. This chapter reveals what that weapon is and why mastering it is the difference between building wealth and just making money. The compound curve secret. Here's what most entrepreneurs don't understand about wealth creation. The magic happens in the later years, not the early ones. The first year of compounding feels slow. The second year feels modest. The third year starts to get interesting. But years 5 through 15, that's where fortunes get made. Yet most people quit before the curve turns upward. They abandon strategies just as they're about to pay off. They pivot away from approaches right before they break through. They trade their future wealth for present comfort. This isn't a character flaw, it's human nature. Our brains are wired to overvalue immediate rewards and undervalue future ones. Behavioral economists call this hyperbolic discounting. And it's the reason most people stay broke, despite having access to wealth-building strategies that actually work. The builders who escape this trap understand something profound. Time is not just a factor in wealth creation, it's the primary factor. Given enough time, even modest advantages compound into extraordinary results. Given enough time, small consistent actions outperform dramatic sporadic efforts. Given enough time, patience becomes the ultimate competitive advantage. But here's the crucial insight. You can't just wait for time to pass. You have to actively extend your time horizon. You have to build systems that make long-term thinking automatic. You have to create structures that protect your future self from your present impulses. The horizon ladder. The secret to extending your time horizon isn't willpower, it's architecture. You need to build a framework that connects your daily actions to your long-term vision in a way that makes patience feel natural rather than forced. Think of it as a horizon ladder. Your daily actions form the bottom rung. Your weekly shipping cadence forms the next rung. Your quarterly themes form the middle rungs. Your annual goals form the higher rungs. And your 3-year vision forms the top rung. Each level of the ladder serves a different purpose. Daily actions create momentum and build habits. Weekly shipping creates tangible progress and learning opportunities. Quarterly themes provide direction and focus. Annual goals create accountability and measurement. The 3-year vision provides meaning and motivation. The magic happens in the connections between levels. Your daily actions should ladder up to your weekly shipping goals. Your weekly shipping should support your quarterly themes. Your quarterly themes should advance your annual goals. Your annual goals should move you toward your 3-year vision. When these connections are clear and strong, long-term thinking becomes automatic. You're not choosing between present pleasure and future benefit. You're choosing between actions that support your ladder and actions that don't. The decision becomes obvious rather than difficult. The automation advantage. But even the best intentions can't overcome the psychological pull of immediate gratification. That's why the most successful builders don't rely on willpower, they rely on automation. Automation removes the daily decisions that drain your resolve. When your investment contributions happen automatically, you don't have to choose between investing and spending every month. When your calendar blocks for deep work are pre-scheduled, you don't have to choose between creation and consumption every day. When your quarterly reviews are calendar locked, you don't have to choose between reflection and reaction every quarter. This isn't about becoming robotic. It's about becoming strategic. You're using your present clarity to protect your future judgment. You're making decisions once and implementing them repeatedly. You're building systems that make the right choices easier than the wrong ones. The key is to automate the boring good while keeping the exciting decisions manual. Automate your savings, your investments, your creation time, your review cycles. Keep manual your creative choices, your strategic pivots, your relationship building, your skill development. This approach does something powerful. It separates the mechanical from the meaningful. You're not wasting mental energy on routine decisions that should be systematic. You're preserving your decision-making capacity for the choices that actually matter. The patience paradox. Here's where most people get confused about long-term thinking. They assume patience means passivity. They think extending your time horizon means slowing down your actions. They believe that playing the long game requires sacrificing short-term progress. This is exactly backwards. The most successful long-term builders are often the most active short-term executors. They ship more frequently, not less. They experiment more rapidly, not more slowly. They iterate more quickly, not more deliberately. The difference is in what they're optimizing for. Short-term thinkers optimize for immediate results. Long-term thinkers optimize for learning velocity. Short-term thinkers measure success by this month's numbers. Long-term thinkers measure success by this quarter's capabilities. This creates a paradox. The people who care least about short-term results often achieve the best short-term results. Because they're not desperate for immediate wins, they can make better decisions. Because they're not panicked about this month's numbers, they can invest in next year's advantages. Patience isn't passive, it's active restraint. It's the discipline to keep building when others are pivoting. It's the wisdom to keep investing when others are spending. It's the confidence to keep learning when others are performing. The decision diet. One of the biggest threats to long-term thinking is decision fatigue. Every choice you make depletes your mental energy. Every option you consider drains your resolve. Every pivot you contemplate weakens your commitment to your original plan. Smart builders protect their long-term thinking by reducing their decision frequency. They make fewer decisions, but they make them more deliberately. They commit to longer holding periods. They batch similar choices. They say no more often and yes more carefully. This isn't about becoming inflexible. It's about becoming intentional. You're not avoiding decisions. You're making them at the right level and the right frequency. You're not being stubborn. You're being strategic about when to change course and when to stay the course. The key is distinguishing between reversible and irreversible decisions. Reversible decisions can be made quickly and changed easily. Irreversible decisions should be made slowly and held firmly. Most decisions are more reversible than they appear, which means you can move faster on most things and slower on the few things that really matter. The visualization engine. Here's a secret that successful long-term builders use. They make the future feel as real as the present. They don't just plan for compound growth, they visualize it. They don't just hope for long-term success, they make it tangible. The most powerful tool for this is the compound curve visualization. Plot your cumulative progress over time, show your growing skill stack, track your expanding network, chart your increasing reputation, make the invisible visible. When you can see the curve, you're less likely to quit before it turns upward. When you can visualize the compound effect, you're more likely to stay patient during the slow periods. When you can track the accumulation, you're more motivated to keep accumulating. This isn't about creating fantasy projections. It's about making realistic progress visible. You're not predicting the future. You're documenting the present in a way that reveals the trajectory. The key is updating these visualizations regularly, but reviewing them infrequently. Update your data weekly, but look at the trends quarterly. This gives you accurate information without the emotional volatility of daily fluctuations. The commitment architecture. The biggest challenge in long-term thinking isn't knowing what to do. It's doing it consistently when motivation fades. That's why successful builders don't rely on motivation. They rely on commitment architecture. Commitment architecture makes it harder to quit than to continue. It creates social pressure, financial incentives, and structural barriers that support your long-term goals even when your short-term emotions don't. Public commitments work because they engage your reputation. Financial commitments work because they engage your loss aversion. Structural commitments work because they engage your environment. The most powerful commitment architecture uses all three. Share your long-term goals publicly. Invest money in your long-term development. Structure your environment to support your long-term habits. Make quitting expensive and continuing easy. This isn't about trapping yourself. It's about aligning your incentives. You're using your present clarity to support your future persistence. You're building systems that make your long-term goals feel as urgent as your short-term impulses. The identity evolution. As you extend your time horizon, something profound happens. Your identity begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who trades time for money and start seeing yourself as someone who builds assets that generate returns. You stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like an owner. This identity shift changes everything. Owners think differently than operators. Investors think differently than earners. Builders think differently than hustlers. The longer your time horizon, the more your thinking aligns with wealth creation rather than income generation. This isn't about changing who you are. It's about becoming who you're capable of being. You're not adopting a fake identity. You're growing into your potential identity. You're not pretending to be patient. You're becoming genuinely patient through practice and structure. The most successful builders don't just extend their time horizon. They become the type of person for whom a long time horizon feels natural. They don't just think long-term, they are long-term thinkers. But extending your time horizon is just one piece of a larger puzzle. There's something even more dangerous than impatience that can destroy years of careful building in a matter of months. Something that turns patient builders into desperate speculators. Something that makes even the wisest investors abandon their principles at exactly the wrong moment. The next chapter reveals the force that has destroyed more wealth than any market crash or economic downturn, and the framework that protects you from becoming its next victim. Chapter 7, Market Sanity. There's a moment in every market cycle when the smartest people in the room start acting like fools, when seasoned investors abandon their principles, when successful builders chase trends they would have mocked months earlier, when rational people make irrational decisions with perfect confidence. This moment has destroyed more wealth than every recession, crash, and crisis combined. It's the moment when markets stop making sense, but everyone pretends they still do. When prices detach from reality, but everyone agrees the new reality is permanent. The builders who survive these moments and profit from them have developed something that's rarer than skill, more valuable than connections, and more powerful than capital. Something that protects them when everyone else is losing their minds. This chapter reveals what that something is and why it's your best defense against the madness that periodically grips every market. The collective delusion. Here's what most people don't understand about market manias. They're not caused by stupidity. They're caused by intelligence applied to false premises. The smartest people in the room aren't making dumb decisions. They're making logical decisions based on assumptions that seem reasonable at the time. During the dot-com bubble, it wasn't stupid to believe the internet would change everything. It was true. It wasn't irrational to think traditional valuation metrics might not apply to revolutionary technologies. Many didn't. It wasn't foolish to see that network effects could create winner-take-all markets. They could. The problem wasn't the intelligence of the participants. It was the collective agreement to ignore inconvenient truths. Like the fact that companies still needed to generate cash flow eventually. Like the fact that growth without profits is just expensive customer acquisition. Like the fact that "this time is different" is the most expensive phrase in finance. This is how bubbles work. They start with a kernel of truth, add a layer of reasonable extrapolation, then build layer upon layer of increasingly questionable assumptions until the whole structure becomes absurd. But by then, everyone is so invested, financially and emotionally, that questioning the structure feels like heresy. The builders who avoid this trap understand something crucial. Sanity isn't about being right about the future. It's about maintaining perspective when everyone else is losing theirs. It's about remembering that markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent, but they can't stay irrational forever. The two games problem. One of the most dangerous aspects of market manias is how they blur the line between two completely different games, wealth creation and status signaling. These games have different rules, different rewards, and different risks. Confusing them is expensive. Wealth creation is a positive-sum game. You create value, others benefit, everyone wins. It's based on cash flows, customer satisfaction, and sustainable competitive advantages. It rewards patience, consistency, and long-term thinking. It's measured in dollars earned and assets accumulated. Status signaling is a zero-sum game. Your gain requires someone else's loss. It's based on perception, positioning, and social proof. It rewards boldness, novelty, and short-term thinking. It's measured in attention gained and influence accumulated. During normal times, these games are easy to distinguish. Building a profitable business is clearly wealth creation. Posting about your lifestyle on social media is clearly status signaling. The lines are clear. The choices are obvious. But during manias, the lines blur. Suddenly, the people getting rich are the ones playing status games. The flashiest entrepreneurs get the biggest valuations. The loudest voices get the most followers. The most outrageous claims get the most attention. It starts to seem like status signaling is wealth creation. This is when smart builders make expensive mistakes. They abandon their wealth creation strategies to play status games. They chase attention instead of profits. They optimize for perception instead of performance. They trade their long-term advantages for short-term recognition. The bubble anatomy. Every bubble follows the same pattern, regardless of the asset class or time period. Understanding this pattern is like having a map of dangerous territory. It doesn't guarantee safe passage, but it dramatically improves your odds. The pattern starts with a new story. Technology will change everything. Demographics will drive demand forever. This asset class will never decline. The story is usually true in some sense, which makes it compelling, but it's also incomplete, which makes it dangerous. The story attracts capital. Money flows toward the new opportunity. Prices rise. Early investors make money. Success stories spread. More capital flows in. Prices rise faster. The cycle accelerates. As prices rise, traditional valuation metrics stop working. Price-to-earnings ratios become irrelevant because earnings don't matter anymore. Cash flow analysis becomes obsolete because growth is everything. Risk assessment becomes impossible because risk has been redefined as opportunity. New metrics emerge to justify the new prices. Eyeballs instead of earnings, users instead of revenue, potential instead of performance. These metrics aren't necessarily wrong, but they're incomplete. They capture part of the value equation while ignoring other parts. Credit becomes cheaper and more available. Leverage increases across the system. People borrow against their gains to buy more. The cycle accelerates further. Prices detach completely from underlying fundamentals. Then something breaks. A company misses expectations. A loan defaults. An assumption proves false. The story cracks. Confidence wavers. Selling begins. Leverage amplifies the decline. The cycle reverses with the same intensity it rose. The Sanity checklist. The builders who survive bubbles don't try to time the market. They try to maintain perspective. They use simple frameworks to distinguish between genuine opportunity and collective delusion. They ask basic questions that everyone else has stopped asking. The most powerful framework is the cash flow test. Strip away the story, ignore the hype, and ask, if prices stayed exactly where they are for the next 10 years, would you still want to own this asset? If the answer is no, you're probably in bubble territory. Another crucial test is the insider behavior check. What are the people closest to the action actually doing? Are company founders selling their shares? Are venture capitalists taking money off the table? Are industry experts quietly diversifying? Actions speak louder than words, especially when the words are bullish and the actions are bearish. The leverage test is equally important. How much borrowed money is flowing into the market? How easy is it to get credit? How many people are borrowing against their gains to buy more? High leverage amplifies both gains and losses, but it guarantees that losses will be catastrophic when they come. The narrative test reveals how detached prices have become from reality. Are people explaining away traditional valuation metrics? Are new theories emerging to justify new prices? Are critics being dismissed rather than debated? When the story becomes more important than the math, danger is near. The toolmaker's immunity. But here's the secret that the most successful builders understand. You don't have to choose between participating in manias and avoiding them entirely. There's a third option that's both safer and more profitable. Become the toolmaker. During the California gold rush, most prospectors went broke, but the people selling picks, shovels, and supplies made fortunes. During the dot-com bubble, most startups failed, but the companies providing infrastructure and services thrived. During every mania, the toolmakers profit while the speculators struggle. The toolmaker strategy works because it captures the upside of manias without the downside of speculation. You're selling to the speculators, not competing with them. You're providing the infrastructure they need, not betting on their success. You're earning fees from their activity, not risking capital on their outcomes. This approach requires a different mindset. Instead of asking, how can I profit from this trend? You ask, what do the trend chasers need to succeed? Instead of trying to pick winners, you enable everyone to play. Instead of betting on outcomes, you profit from the process. The toolmaker strategy also provides natural protection against bubble bursts. When the mania ends, you still have real assets, real customers, and real cash flows. You're not left holding overpriced assets or worthless tokens. You've built something that survives the cycle. The contrarian's edge. Maintaining market sanity requires cultivating contrarian thinking, but not the kind that's reflexively negative about everything. Smart contrarians aren't pessimists. They're independent thinkers who refuse to outsource their judgment to crowds. This means actively seeking out dissenting opinions, especially when you're feeling confident about a position. It means stress testing your assumptions regularly. It means rewarding yourself for changing your mind when evidence contradicts your beliefs. The most effective approach is to build a formal red team process. Once a month, actively look for evidence that contradicts your current strategy. Seek out smart people who disagree with your approach. Ask them to poke holes in your logic. Thank them for their criticism instead of defending your position. This isn't about becoming paralyzed by doubt. It's about maintaining intellectual honesty. You're not trying to prove yourself wrong, but you're staying open to the possibility that you might be. You're not abandoning your convictions, but you're holding them lightly enough to change course when necessary. The historical perspective. One of the most powerful tools for maintaining market sanity is historical perspective. Bubbles feel unprecedented when you're living through them, but they're actually remarkably similar across time and asset classes. The details change, but the dynamics remain constant. Isaac Newton, one of the greatest minds in human history, lost a fortune in the South Sea bubble. He understood the mathematics of motion and gravity, but he couldn't resist the gravitational pull of a market mania. If Newton could fall victim to bubble psychology, anyone can. The dot-com bubble taught us that revolutionary technology doesn't guarantee profitable businesses. The 2008 financial crisis showed us that sophisticated financial engineering can't eliminate risk. It can only hide it temporarily. Every bubble teaches the same lesson. Markets can disconnect from fundamentals for longer than seems possible, but they always reconnect eventually. This historical perspective provides emotional stability during volatile times. When you understand that manias are normal parts of market cycles, you're less likely to panic when they occur. When you know that bubbles always burst eventually, you're more likely to prepare for the aftermath. When you remember that sanity always returns, you're more patient about waiting for it. The compound calm. As you develop market sanity, something remarkable happens. You become calmer during volatile times. You make better decisions when others are panicking. You see opportunities that others miss because they're too caught up in the emotion of the moment. This calm becomes a competitive advantage. While others are making emotional decisions based on fear or greed, you're making rational decisions based on evidence and probability. While they're chasing trends or fleeing crashes, you're building sustainable advantages that compound over time. But market sanity is just one piece of the wealth-building puzzle. There's something even more fundamental that determines whether your careful market navigation translates into actual wealth, something that separates those who preserve capital from those who multiply it. The next chapter reveals the strategy that transforms market sanity into market dominance, but only for those who understand that the real game isn't about avoiding losses, it's about capturing value in ways that most people never even consider. Chapter 8. Value over price. Two professionals submit proposals for the same project. Both have identical qualifications. Both promise the same deliverables. Both have glowing testimonials, yet one gets hired at triple the rate of the other. The difference isn't talent, it isn't experience, it isn't even the quality of their work. It's something far more fundamental, something that determines whether you spend your career competing on price or commanding premium rates, something that separates those who negotiate pennies from those who create wealth. The builders who escape the price trap understand a secret about human psychology that most professionals never discover. They've learned to shift the entire conversation away from cost and towards something far more powerful. This chapter reveals what that secret is and why mastering it is the difference between being a commodity and being irreplaceable. The price fixation trap. Here's what most professionals get wrong about pricing. They think it's about numbers. They believe that if they can just find the right price point, not too high, not too low, clients will say yes. They spend hours researching competitor rates, calculating their costs, and trying to optimize their pricing strategy. This is backwards thinking. Price isn't a number, it's a story. It's not about what you charge, it's about what that charge represents. It's not a mathematical equation, it's a psychological perception. When clients focus on price, they're really asking a different question. What am I getting for this money, and is it worth the risk? They're not just buying your deliverables, they're buying certainty, speed, and peace of mind. They're not just paying for your time, they're paying for outcomes, expertise, and problem solving. The professionals who command premium rates understand this distinction. They don't sell hours, they sell results. They don't compete on cost, they compete on value. They don't justify their prices, they demonstrate their worth. This shift changes everything. When you're selling outcomes instead of inputs, price becomes secondary to value. When you're competing on results instead of rates, clients stop shopping around. When you're demonstrating worth instead of defending costs, negotiations become conversations about success rather than arguments about money. The opportunity cost blindness. But here's the hidden cost of price fixation that most professionals never calculate: the opportunity cost of cheap work. Every hour you spend on low-paying projects is an hour you can't spend building skills, developing systems, or pursuing premium opportunities. This creates a vicious cycle. Low prices attract price-sensitive clients who demand more work for less money. These clients consume your time with endless revisions, scope creep, and hand-holding. You're so busy delivering cheap work that you can't invest in the capabilities that would justify higher rates. Meanwhile, premium clients, the ones who value outcomes over inputs, are looking for providers who signal expertise and confidence. But you can't signal these qualities when you're trapped in the discount game. Your low prices become evidence of low value, not high affordability. The math is brutal. If you're charging $50 an hour instead of $200, you need to work 4 times as many hours to earn the same income. But those extra hours aren't just time, they're opportunities. Time you could have spent learning new skills, time you could have invested in building systems, time you could have used to develop relationships with premium clients. This is why the cheapest providers often stay cheap. They're too busy being cheap to become valuable. They're trapped in a cycle where low prices prevent the investments that would justify high prices. The value thesis framework. The escape from price competition starts with building what I call a value thesis, a clear, compelling explanation of the problem you solve, the stakes involved, and the outcomes you deliver. This isn't marketing copy. It's strategic positioning that reframes the entire conversation. The value thesis starts with the problem, but not just any problem. The expensive problem, the urgent problem, the problem that keeps your ideal client awake at night. You need to understand not just what's broken, but what it costs to leave it broken. This requires moving beyond surface symptoms to underlying economics. If a client's website is slow, the problem isn't really the slow website. It's the lost conversions, frustrated customers, and damaged reputation. If their marketing isn't working, the problem isn't the marketing, it's the missed growth opportunities and competitive disadvantage. The stakes must be quantifiable and urgent. What does it cost to do nothing? What does it cost to delay? What opportunities are being missed while the problem persists? These aren't abstract concerns. They're concrete economic realities that make your fee seem small by comparison. The desired outcome must be specific and measurable. Not better performance, but 30% faster load times leading to 15% higher conversion rates. not improved marketing, but predictable pipeline generating 50 qualified leads per month. Vague promises invite price negotiations. Specific outcomes justify premium rates. The outcome architecture. Once you've established the value thesis, the next step is packaging your solutions around outcomes rather than activities. This is where most professionals make a critical mistake. They sell what they do instead of what they achieve. Traditional service packaging focuses on deliverables. I'll redesign your website, optimize your content, and set up analytics. This approach invites comparison shopping because clients can easily compare one provider's deliverables against another's. It also focuses attention on inputs rather than outputs. Outcome-based packaging flips this script. I'll increase your conversion rate by 20% within 90 days, with full measurement and optimization included. This approach makes comparison shopping difficult because you're not selling the same thing as your competitors. You're selling results, not activities. The key is creating tiers that map to different levels of outcome and risk removal. The basic tier delivers the core outcome with standard support. The premium tier delivers the same outcome faster with additional risk removal and guarantees. The ultimate tier delivers transformation beyond the immediate outcome with ongoing optimization and priority access. Each tier should feel like a natural progression, not arbitrary price points. The client should understand exactly what they're getting at each level and why the higher tiers cost more. The pricing should reflect the value delivered, not just the effort required. The anchoring advantage. Here's where psychology becomes crucial. The way you present your pricing determines how clients perceive your value. Most professionals make the mistake of starting with their cheapest option, which anchors the conversation around low prices. Smart professionals start with transformation value. Begin every pricing conversation by establishing the total value of the transformation you're offering. If your solution will save the client $100,000 annually, lead with that number. If it will generate $50,000 in new revenue, make that the anchor. If it will prevent a catastrophic failure, quantify that risk. Only after establishing the transformation value should you introduce your fee structure. This creates the proper context for evaluation. Instead of asking, "Is this service worth $10,000?" the client is asking, "Is $10,000 a reasonable investment to capture $100,000 in value?" The contrast principle works in your favor here. When clients see the potential upside first, your fee feels like a small price to pay for a large gain. When they see your fee first, everything else feels like justification for an expense. This approach also eliminates the most common objection: your price is too high. When the price is properly anchored against the value, it's not too high, it's a bargain. The conversation shifts from cost justification to implementation planning. The scope protection strategy. One of the biggest threats to value-based pricing is scope creep, the gradual expansion of project requirements without corresponding price adjustments. This happens because most professionals are afraid to say no to client requests, even when those requests fall outside the original agreement. The solution is building scope boundaries into your pricing structure from the beginning. Instead of trying to anticipate every possible request, create clear definitions of what's included and what's additional. Make these boundaries visible and non-negotiable. When clients request changes or additions, don't automatically say yes or no. Instead, present options. We can absolutely add that feature. It would require expanding the scope, which would add X to the timeline and Y to the investment. Alternatively, we could replace feature Z with this new request to stay within the original scope. Which approach works better for you? This approach does two things. First, it protects your margins by ensuring that additional work gets additional compensation. Second, it educates clients about the true cost of changes, which often makes them more selective about their requests. The key is framing scope changes as opportunities rather than problems. You're not saying no, you're offering choices. You're not being difficult, you're being clear about the relationship between scope and investment. The proof multiplier. Nothing justifies premium pricing like proof of premium results. But most professionals present proof in ways that actually undermine their value proposition. They focus on what they did rather than what they achieved. They emphasize their process rather than their outcomes. Effective proof focuses on before and after metrics that directly relate to client value. Not, we redesigned their website, but we increased their conversion rate from 2% to 5%, generating an additional $200,000 in annual revenue. Not, we optimized their marketing, but we reduced their customer acquisition cost by 40% while doubling their lead volume. The most powerful proof includes 3 elements: the starting point, the ending point, and the timeline. This creates a clear narrative of transformation that clients can envision for themselves. They're not just seeing what you can do, they're seeing what you can do for them. Specificity is crucial here. Vague claims like significant improvement or substantial growth sound like marketing speak. Precise numbers, like 37% increase in qualified leads within 60 days, sound like documented results. When possible, include the client's own words about the transformation. Third-party validation carries more weight than your own claims, but even client testimonials should focus on outcomes rather than process satisfaction. The abundance shift. Perhaps the most important aspect of value-based pricing is the mindset shift it requires. You must move from scarcity thinking to abundance thinking. From believing there's only one way to solve the client's problem to seeing multiple pathways to value creation. Scarcity thinking makes you desperate. You'll take any project at any price because you're afraid of losing the opportunity. You'll agree to unreasonable terms because you need the work. You'll compete primarily on price because you don't believe you have other advantages. Abundance thinking makes you selective. You can afford to say no to projects that don't fit your value proposition because you know there are others that will. You can maintain your pricing standards because you're confident in your ability to deliver results. You can compete on outcomes because you've built the capabilities to deliver them. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It requires building the skills, systems, and proof points that justify premium positioning. But once you make the shift, everything changes. Clients stop seeing you as a vendor and start seeing you as a strategic partner. Negotiations stop being about price and start being about outcomes. The transformation is profound. You stop trading time for money and start trading expertise for results. You stop competing with everyone and start competing with no one. You stop justifying your prices and start demonstrating your value. But mastering value-based pricing is just one piece of a larger transformation. There's something even more fundamental that determines whether all your careful positioning and pricing translates into sustainable wealth. Something that connects every strategy in this book into a self-reinforcing system that compounds your success over time. The final chapter reveals how to integrate everything you've learned into a flywheel that makes wealth creation feel inevitable rather than accidental, but only for those who understand that true mastery isn't about perfecting individual tactics, but about orchestrating them into something greater than the sum of their parts. Chapter 9, Wealth Flywheel. You've learned 8 strategies that can transform your relationship with money. But here's what most people miss. These strategies aren't meant to be used in isolation. They're designed to work together, each one amplifying the others, creating something far more powerful than the sum of their parts. This is the secret that separates builders who achieve modest success from those who create lasting wealth. It's not about perfecting individual tactics. It's about orchestrating them into a self-reinforcing system that makes success feel inevitable rather than accidental. Welcome to the Wealth Flywheel, the framework that locks in everything you've learned and transforms it into unstoppable momentum. The compound connection. Think about what you've discovered in this book. You've learned to measure what you control instead of what controls you. You've built systems that ship consistently. You've developed skills that multiply your capabilities. You've managed risk intelligently. You've extended your time horizon. You've maintained market sanity. You've priced on value instead of cost. Each strategy is powerful on its own, but when they work together, something magical happens. Your lead indicators become more predictable because your systems are more reliable. Your systems become more valuable because your skills are more sophisticated. Your skills become more profitable because your pricing reflects their true worth. Your pricing becomes more defensible because your risk management protects your reputation. This is how flywheels work. Each push makes the next push easier. Each improvement lowers friction for the next improvement. Each success creates the conditions for greater success. The wealth flywheel has 8 interconnected components, each feeding into the next. Process metrics drive system reliability. System reliability enables skill development. Skill development justifies smart risk-taking. Smart risk-taking benefits from long-time horizons. Long-time horizons require market sanity. Market sanity enables value-based pricing. Value-based pricing creates abundance thinking. Abundance thinking improves process metrics. The loop is complete. The flywheel spins. Momentum builds. The 3 pillars of wealth. As your flywheel gains momentum, you'll notice something remarkable happening. 3 things begin growing together in a way that feels almost effortless: cash, credibility, and calm. Cash grows because you're creating more value with less effort. Your systems ship consistently, your skills command premium rates, and your pricing reflects your true worth. Revenue becomes more predictable, margins improve, and wealth accumulates naturally. Credibility grows because you're delivering on your promises reliably. Your process metrics ensure consistent quality. Your systems prevent embarrassing failures. Your skills solve problems others can't. Your reputation compounds as your reliability becomes known. Calm grows because you're no longer at the mercy of market forces. Your risk management protects your downside. Your time horizon smooths out volatility. Your market sanity prevents expensive mistakes. Your abundance mindset eliminates desperation. These 3 elements reinforce each other. Cash gives you the freedom to be selective, which improves your credibility. Credibility attracts better opportunities, which increases your cash. Calm enables better decision-making, which protects both cash and credibility. This is what wealth actually looks like, not just money, but the peace of mind that comes from knowing you can create value consistently, the reputation that opens doors, and the financial resources that provide options. The identity transformation. As your flywheel spins faster, something profound happens to your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who trades time for money and start seeing yourself as someone who creates value through capability. You stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like an owner. You stop acting like a vendor and start acting like a strategic partner. This identity shift changes everything. Owners think in terms of assets and systems. Strategic partners think in terms of outcomes and relationships. Value creators think in terms of problems solved and capabilities built. The shift happens gradually, then suddenly. One day you realize you're no longer checking your bank balance obsessively. You're no longer panicking when a client delays payment. You're no longer desperate for the next project because you know your systems will generate the next opportunity. You've become the type of person to whom money flows naturally because you've built something worth paying for. You've created a business that works without your constant intervention. You've developed capabilities that compound over time. This isn't about changing who you are. It's about becoming who you're capable of being. You're not adopting a fake persona. You're growing into your potential. You're not pretending to be wealthy. You're becoming genuinely wealthy through systematic value creation. The relationship revolution. One of the most surprising benefits of the wealth flywheel is how it transforms your relationships. When you're no longer desperate for money, you can be more generous with your time and attention. When you're confident in your capabilities, you can collaborate instead of compete. When you have systems that work, you can share them without fear. Your client relationships improve dramatically. Because you're pricing on outcomes instead of hours, Conversations focus on results rather than costs. Because you have clear boundaries and reliable systems, projects run smoother with fewer conflicts. Because you're selective about who you work with, you attract clients who value what you do. Your professional relationships deepen. Because you're not competing on price, you can refer work to others without losing income. Because you have valuable skills and systems, you become someone others want to collaborate with. Because you think abundantly instead of scarcely, you can create win-win partnerships. Your personal relationships benefit too. Because your income is more predictable, you can plan better. Because your work is more systematic, you can disconnect more easily. Because you're calmer about money, you're more present in other areas of life. The flywheel effect extends beyond business into every aspect of your life. Success in one area creates conditions for success in other areas. Calm in your work creates calm in your relationships. Confidence in your capabilities creates confidence in your decisions. The freedom formula. Here's what the wealth flywheel ultimately creates. Freedom. Not just financial freedom, but the deeper freedom that comes from knowing you can create value consistently, solve problems systematically, and build wealth predictably. This freedom has 3 dimensions. Time freedom. You're no longer trapped in the time for money exchange. You've built systems and capabilities that generate value without your constant presence. You can take vacations without your business suffering. You can pursue interests without sacrificing income. Choice freedom. You're no longer forced to take whatever work comes your way. You can be selective about clients, projects, and opportunities. You can say no to things that don't align with your values or goals. You can choose your own adventure instead of accepting whatever adventure chooses you. Impact freedom. You're no longer limited by your personal capacity. Your systems can scale. Your skills can be taught. Your frameworks can be licensed. You can create value for more people without working more hours. You can build something that outlasts and outgrows you. This is what wealth actually provides, not just money, but options, not just security, but possibility, not just comfort, but capability. The momentum multiplier. As your flywheel gains speed, you'll discover something remarkable. Each revolution requires less effort than the last. This is the power of momentum in action. Your first lead indicator dashboard takes hours to build. Your 10th takes minutes because you have templates. Your first system documentation is painful and slow. Your 5th flows easily because you understand the pattern. Your first skill sprint feels overwhelming. Your 3rd feels natural because you've developed learning systems. Each proof point makes the next sale easier. Each satisfied client generates referrals. Each successful project builds your reputation. Each capability you develop multiplies the value of every other capability. The compound effect accelerates. Small improvements create bigger improvements. Modest advantages become significant advantages. Incremental progress becomes exponential progress. This is why patience is so crucial in the early stages. The flywheel feels heavy at first. Progress seems slow. Results appear modest. But if you keep pushing consistently, momentum builds. The wheel spins faster. Progress accelerates. Results multiply. Your next move. You now have everything you need to build your own wealth flywheel. You understand the components. You know how they connect. You've seen how they compound. The only question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Here's your immediate action plan. Today, before you do anything else, write down 3 lead indicators you can control this week. Not next month. Not when you have time. This week. Make them specific, measurable, and binary. Put them somewhere you'll see them every day. Next, map your value creation loop on one page. Discover, design, deliver, feedback, iterate. Identify where work typically gets stuck. Note where quality usually breaks down. Mark where handoffs usually fail. This becomes your system improvement roadmap. Then, choose one skill for a 12-week sprint. Pick the capability that would unlock your biggest constraint. Commit to 45 minutes of practice daily. Plan to ship one project using that skill every week. Start tomorrow. Finally, set your guardrails. Define your maximum monthly drawdown. Establish your reserve target. Draft your bubble checklist. Write your value thesis. These protect your flywheel from the forces that destroy wealth. Do these 4 things, and you'll have momentum. Keep doing them, and you'll have inevitability. The compound life. One disciplined week creates momentum. You'll feel the difference immediately. Your days will have more structure. Your work will have more purpose. Your progress will have more visibility. One disciplined quarter creates inevitability. The patterns will be clear. The systems will be working. The skills will be developing. The results will be accumulating. One disciplined year creates freedom. The flywheel will be spinning fast enough to generate its own momentum. The wealth will be building predictably. The calm will be permanent. This is your choice. You can keep chasing money and stay broke. You can keep trading time for dollars and stay trapped. You can keep hoping for luck and stay disappointed. Or you can stop chasing and start building. You can pick the levers and push them daily. You can protect the downside and let the upside compound. You can become the type of person to whom money flows naturally because you've built something worth paying for. The wealth flywheel is waiting. The components are clear. The connections are mapped. The momentum is ready to build. Your move. The calm, compounding life you've always wanted isn't years away. It's not months away. It's one decision away. The decision to stop chasing cash and start creating value. The decision to stop trading time and start building assets. The decision to stop hoping for wealth and start systematically creating it. Everything you need is in your hands. Everything you've learned is in your mind. Everything you want is within your reach. Stop chasing cash. Start building wealth. The flywheel is waiting for your first push.